Welcome to the T&C Random Fandom podcast. We are here to have fun and talk all things pop culture, collecting, and nerd culture in general. Make sure you join the conversation during our live stream with our most excellent hosts, Craig Borden and Tommy Mock. Let the shenanigans begin.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to T&C Random Fandom. I am your host, Craig Borden, and with me, as always, my other Caped Crusader, my Batman to my Robin, Tommy Mock. How the hell are you, buddy?
I'm only the Batman because I'm older than you, so yeah.
There is
that. Does that make you my ward?
Boy wonder here, got it.
Oh,
rusted metal, Batman.
Holy rusted metal.
So how are we doing, buddy?
I am doing fantastic. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up something here, but it's not pulling up the correct way. So I apologize. This is really bad pod right now. So, anyways, I am doing great. I am actually I had surgery, in case people didn't know.
Does it say how you feeling?
It's okay. It's okay. It's getting to the point to where the sutures itch, so I guess that's a good thing.
It's
so
kind of like,
yeah, and I can't take it off until Wednesday. Well, with that being said, I got a few shout outs to throw out there before we get started in this totally bat dance kind of thing we're got going here. But first, I want to throw out a shout out to our friend Paz from our cosplay episode. Paz. Sorry, it's Paz.
Yeah.
And he won a cosplay contest at the Syracuse Collector Con. He won the Best Craftsmanship Award for his cosplay.
There you go.
So shout out to Paz. Good job. Glad to have you on. And we will probably do another cosplay episode. And I guess maybe the both of us will we'll dress up for that show. Anyways, and then the second shout out is I want to shout out to the Flint Hill Dance Troupe, a dance troupe that I'm a part of. We just got finished with, well, I shouldn't say we, but it's still part of my group, with the Genesee Country Village and Museum's Maple Fest. They got to perform, and we had a blast last weekend, and I'm sure that they had a blast this weekend, and can't wait for all of the upcoming performances that we have. And so stay tuned. You'll probably hear a lot more, but you've probably seen on our Instagram some of the stuff that I've posted out there. So enjoy. So now, that's all I got. Cool. So those are the shout outs.
Those are the shout outs. Well, I'll get to the shameless self-promoting later because I got stuff to talk about, but I'll do it at the end of the show. But anyways, tonight we are going to talk about nothing other than the Caped Crusader in movie cinema tonight, Tommy Mock. And this is something that when we were tossing ideas of what we wanted to talk out this week, we really didn't have the best of ideas, and we didn't have a guest this week. So it was you and I trying to ad-lib and figure out what the heck we wanted to chit-chat about. And I felt like we had been doing the DC universe a little bit of a disservice. So why don't we tonight start with getting some of the fanboys on the DC universe all taken care of here, because we're going to talk about, like I said, none other than the detective of detectives that is, Batman, Bruce Wayne. So let's go back, Tommy. Let's go back way back, because this actually started on the silver screen in one fashion really, really long time ago. In 1949 was technically the first Batman and Robin. I've only ever seen clips of this black and white thing, and it was literally just a slash bang bang, and it was really in costume only. Have you ever seen any clips of that old movie or anything like that while you've been nerding out or anything? I've only seen a few. Yeah.
No, actually, I have not, and it's and I guess I'm doing a disservice to our fans because I've never seen it. And honestly, if you're probably going to pull something up, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't have it.
only about 2 seconds, so we don't get flagged for copyright or anything like that.
Yeah,
but but I would say Bruce Wayne is, and let me know if you would agree to this, but Bruce Wayne is the Tony Stark of the DC universe.
Yes, and more rightfully so because of continuity, time frame, and all these things. Iron Man itself is a rip-off of, for the most part, Bruce Wayne in character, but obviously with a very different realistic world spin on it. They're, Tony Stark, Bruce Wayne, very interchangeable with what's going on. They're both happen to work for places that sell weapons. They happen to be major technology nerds. One happens to be a little bit more of a superhero than the other one happens to be more of a detective is kind of I'd say the main dynamic differences. But to your point,
Mhm.
They are very eerily similar in Marvel and DC universe and fandom. And to that point, the one thing that Iron Man never truly had was a true sidekick, like, Robin with Batman.
Right.
Age gap. War Machine was always a peer, right? It was just somebody else that was there. So you get, Colonel James Rhodes, right? It's another warrior. In Robin, you get a whole different dynamic and a story out of that situation. So obviously, we're going to get into that one, but let's
Yep.
start with the campy stuff because we would be doing our friend Eric a very, very big disservice if we didn't talk about the 60s Batman movie that brought us, dancing, the Batuzzi, and shark repellent in that movie, buddy.
Shark repellent, the bat shark. I have to say with all of that, I I love I love how all of Batman's gadgets always had bat in front of it, like it's proprietary.
Let me reach into my utility belt and grab my, wonderful bat shark repellent. Because, okay, now is it bat repellent or bat and shark repellent? Which is it? I give you, but that's
or
what you
is
get
it
for the
or is it
campiness of the '60s show.
or is it a weird crossbreed of a shark and a bat? So you have a bat shark.
It's a flying shark. It's like something out of Super Mario with a flying fish god.
The Sharknado.
Yes. So obviously, the '60s Batman TV series was very successful with Adam West. They had to bring it to the big screen, and they did it at the time a very good fashion outside the shark repellent gag, but all things aside. But they had every villain that they had on the show finally teaming up against Batman and Robin in that series or in that movie. And it was what it was. It was really good. Obviously, it's a period piece with literally the bam, wow, Shazams and everything like that, Tommy.
Mhm.
But at the time, you didn't see things like that on the movie screen, let alone on TV. So I cannot. We like I said, we would have been doing a disservice if we didn't at least talk about it for a few minutes.
Well, I would say when it comes to the campiness of it, I mean, you also got to think it's the 60s. I don't know the 60s, but
Yeah.
I did get the chance to watch, the reruns. I also just like my love for the Monkees came from watching the reruns from a old 60s and 70s television show. And so I think they went and they didn't necessarily want to be too serious, but I think they were trying to be like true to the source material, so to speak. They were making a comic book
Yeah.
movie look like a comic book. So all of the different panels you would have in a comic book, you just basically that's what you had, even up to the commercial breaks. And the voiceovers.
Why not dance? Everything danced at the time. I still think it's funny that watching the old movies just makes me realize how close the Austin Powers movies hit the home because all those little dance bits that they did in between, scenes and everything in the Austin Powers movies were basically just a full on rip off of, what you did with the Batman series when they went from one event to the other. Then the spinning logo where I was like, everything like that. So it was really, like I said, period piece at that time now, but still fun to watch. I'd recommend it to anybody that's still looking for something fun to, cut their brain out of the equation for a few hours and, grab their shark repellent and run with it.
It's funny. It's funny you should say that. Bringing up this whole topic tonight because I kind of stumbled across something on YouTube like a couple of weeks ago, and I just got mesmerized by it, and I watched it, and basically it was a pseudo mockumentary of like the Batman movie or the Batman series and how it became. And it was like, it's just a dramatic retelling, so Adam West was still alive. So was Burt Ward.
Yep.
I think that's his name, right? Burt Ward.
I believe so.
Robin. Yeah. And I was watching this. So they were basically they were telling the story, making them relive all, what it was like to be on the set and how they got the parts and stuff like that. And Burt Ward was a struggling actor at the time, but he knew like actual like kung fu and stuff. So, and he was actually a tumbler and stuff. And Adam West was a theatrical, like real life, honest to God, actor, and not the character that he, portrays in Batman as Bruce Wayne and Batman, if you can stumble upon it, I can't remember what it was called. I'm sure it came out in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Because some of the actors that were in it, I recognize. I can't tell you their names off the top of my head right now. But if you stumble across it, it's worth the watch. Worth the watch.
I think I remember that. I'm remember picturing the cover of that documentary in my head, and it was like, somebody standing there, and I think it was meant to be the man who created Batman. Why am I blanking on that now? I had just on the tip of my tongue a minute ago.
But it's not a documentary, but the telling of the story, but it's all, actors acting it out and everything, but it's kind of like telling the story of how they became, but it's not a documentary. It's like a mockumentary is what I call it. It's just, but it's neither here nor there. But if you get an opportunity to look it up and see it, it's worth a watch, especially if you're a fan of the campy 1960s series and the movie.
Yeah, I think being a comic book fan, it's one of those things, like you mentioned, you just got to watch it. You got to at least watch one episode of the old Batman series and see, like I said, literally the bang, wham, and then see like it take over the screen, all the stuff. I'm only doing so much justice to these wonderful sound effects that they had in that show, but please check it out. It's fun. But then, Tommy, there is a long time without Batman or superheroes or anything on the silver screen, and you finally get to the late 80s where Tim Burton is going, you know what, I want to make a Batman movie. And if you were talking about somebody at that time that could have really brought out the Dark Knight essence and kind of shed the light away from the 60 TV show and get back to the dark and broody parts of what is Batman's tragic story really at the end of the day, and you finally get there in 1989 with a powerhouse cast. Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and you get, Michael Keaton, who at the time was best known for Mr. Mom. I remember, reading these stories and everything as going, really, Mr. Mom is going to be an action star? Good luck with that. Yeah. So, but you finally get that movie from Tim Burton, and it turns into a box office smash, Tommy. What were your first impressions when you saw the first Batman movie?
I thought it was awesome. It wasn't your grandfather's or even your father's Batman. It was a little bit darker. It still had its, essence of camp to it, but it started something.
Had that piece to it, right? It was like, okay, he's still wearing purple,
right? So but the thing is that it had those winks. I would say, the wink to the 1960s, to the source material and being somewhat true to the source material, but still telling a pretty riveting story, and it was believable for, but again, still had a little bit of camp, but that is Tim Burton. Tim Burton is full of camp. He has a style all his own, and anybody who is a fan of any real movies knows who Tim Burton is, and you either love him or you hate him. But I mean,
and you can pick it out like that. Yeah, that one right there is a Tim Burton movie because it has that, like you said, that essence to it, that feel.
It has there's an aesthetic behind it. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and even dealing, making the soundtrack, besides Prince, but the filler music, Danny Elfman, again, you get that feel. You know what it is. You know what you're in for when you get a Tim Burton movie. And I think that a lot of times people, that was their first introduction to what Tim Burton was going to throw at them for the next few decades.
Yeah, that was the mass introduction to Tim Burton in a big way, right? Because that was even, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think The Nightmare Before Christmas actually came out until like 91.
Oh no, it was longer than that. It was farther down.
Yeah,
it was like late 90s.
Yeah. So at that point, it was one of those things that it comes out, and that was obviously his, magnum opus or whatever you want to call it at that point. But this piece was obviously the beginning of that for him getting into big pictures. And I remember there was also people saying he couldn't make an action movie. Things like that was things that people said, and it was honestly this movie literally punches you in the face right off of the movie, right off the bat, So, because he's getting shot at 3 seconds into the movie, and you've got that guy while he's being held up screaming, "What are you?" And that really hooked you right into the movie when he just goes, "I'm Batman," and it's been like that since. That's the catch, right?
So the one thing about Batman, I think that the Tim Burton Batman is that, and you hit the nail on the head when it came to people going, Michael Keaton, really? He's gonna be Batman, he's gonna be Bruce Wayne. Even and the joke itself. Oh, Nightmare. Okay, Mary says.
Mary's got us. I was only this far off.
I was way off then. Thanks, Mary. But
anyway, as you were.
But that became a joke because later on we'll see like more beefier, buff guys playing the part, but your Mr. Mom was going to be Bruce Wayne, Batman. That even the cartoon Animaniacs made a joke of like, you got the black suit Batman is all buff and everything, and then he zips down, and then all of a sudden frumpy, Michael Keaton comes out of the costume.
Yeah. Or you get the wonderful fun that we grew up and had a recent show on talking about the Jay and Silent Bob movies. They repeatedly make fun of Batman in those movies.
Right.
Fly, fat ass, fly. And he's got the freaking bat cape going out. And same thing with, where do you get those wonderful toys when they zip line out to safety away from the security guards? So, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it Kim Basinger that was the first Batman girl that was the reporter in that one?
Yes. So yeah, she played Vicky Vale, right? Vicky Vale.
Vicky Vale. Yep.
And is it Kim Basinger or Kim Basinger? I think it's like the biggest like, how do you pronounce the last name? So I'll go with.
I'm from
Kim
Rochester.
Basinger.
I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong anyway. Can't even say chili in this town. We got to say chili.
Oddly enough, no chili and chili.
Yeah, exactly. No funds. So, but this put the superhero movie on the map. Finally, it was the first real translation of a comic book character from that vibe outside of Superman to really show what you can do with a character on the big screen. And Batman being a little bit more grounded than a lot of those superheroes really translated well, and you were able to show those darker essences of the character with his family was murdered. Yeah. You got to have something. Why does he do this? Okay, well, there's the clear smoking gun, literally. And then you find out as the movie goes along that Jack Nicholson's character, Jack, surprising, that becomes the Joker, is actually the one that killed his parents. And with the line of who dances in the pale moonlight, and they're like, wait, what? So it was really cool to see them take a great source material and be able to spin that piece into it, along with still keeping it very true to the character, and write a great movie of watching the Joker just terrorize Gotham City with the gas, the poisonings, all that stuff. And it just became a really good movie.
So right, and you also get the introduction of a true iconic villain, and which the villains will then, as we progress through the Batman universe, if you will, we're gonna see the evolution of the villains themselves, besides the evolution of the character Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
We're going to see, and it almost became to the point to where you were like, ooh, what's the new Batman outfit going to look like? What's the new Batmobile going to look like? And it got to the point to where that the costume itself and the car itself, and all the little gadgets were more sought after than the actual movie itself.
Yes, and that would be the downgrading of the first evolution, right?
Right. So then we get into right. So again we get a direct sequel, a Tim Burton sequel, which from what I understand, he was actually supposed to do a whole series of Batman movies, which
we're planning
would
for
have
a
been
third one with him even.
Right. And there was some, and that's how we get that who's the next baddie going to be? And the second one, we get Catwoman and we get the Penguin, and we get probably
into another
even
part, Max Schreck even, really, at the end of the day.
Right. And then we get a maybe a darker story than the first one. And
I want to touch on that too, because I was going to use the villains, so you're on point with where I'm going here. I want to talk about Jack Nicholson and how creepy specific he was, and it was the mannerisms, the face makeup, the number one guy, and then the one scene that always sticks out in my head from the original Batman movie was he's in the boardroom there with all the guys, and he's wearing the fake makeup, but he's still got the giant smile on his face to not look like he's got the white Joker face going on. And he walks over to the guy and goes, "It's okay, you can leave." And he just buzzes him to death. And meanwhile, he's electrocuting this guy, and he's like dancing around and all manic and a little clearly bonkers, right? That Jack Nicholson character haunted my youth for a long time.
So again, it's one of those. Again, that's the camp side of it. You get a very, very manic, very psychopathic Jack Nicholson playing a psychopathic Joker, but you also get the Joy Buzzer Kill, which is that camp nod to the 1960s.
Yep. And then you get that all the way literally to the death of the Joker at the end of the movie, where he's, a giant, pit in the middle of the, outside the church, and it's sitting there going, ha, 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 while there's blood coming out of his mouth and everything like that. It was just like I said, there was some points to that movies, and exactly. Those kind of things that, like I said, I probably watched this, being 40 at a time in 1989, I probably shouldn't have been watching said movie, but my parents are like, "Oh, well, we watch all the 60s stuff on freaking TV all the time. Let's go." And
that was 8th grade for me.
And meanwhile, I'm like,
grade.
"Oh my god!" I'm fine with it. I was raised right, and I'm not twitching or nothing.
So we used to go to.
Yeah,
I used to actually have a Joker shirt because, and it was a Joker who was holding up a Joker card, and he had a gun pointing out, and it was just like the Joker head. And but back when God, what was the record store back then? Maybe FYE, something like that. Sam Goody.
Well, on those lines, like Sam Goody probably.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where you went and got the cool T-shirts. You couldn't get cool T-shirts like that at JCPenney or a Kmart at the time. It's like
now you can't either. Because none of those places exist anymore.
Exactly. But now it's like at Walmart, you can get like Nirvana T-shirts. It's like I used to have to go to the record store for these shirts.
Yep. Or if God forbid you had to spend $1 billion at a concert to get it.
Right.
So anyways, going into Batman Returns, like you mentioned, they nail the whole idea of just taking the villain thing to a whole new level, right? You casted these great actors and actresses to be awesome characters. Danny DeVito can be very creepy to begin with, and at that point, you've seen him in some character roles that could have done that, Fish Called Wanda and all these other ones. You could see that it wasn't too far of a nudge for him to be that creepy villain that he ended up being with the Penguin. Then you get Christopher Walken as his quote unquote, partner in crime in Max Schreck. And then you cast Michelle Pfeiffer to play that line between the two of them, between Batman and the two villains. And that created a fun dynamic where you see Max Schreck and the Penguin trying to take over the city and run for mayor and all that kind of stuff. Michelle Pfeiffer obviously not happy with Max Schreck, trying to mess around with everything. And then obviously Batman being conned by Catwoman in real life and all this kind of stuff. It just was a great movie to see, and it was done really well. I was very vastly looking forward to a third Batman movie with Tim Burton at the helm, and we unfortunately didn't get that, but that's a whole nother piece to that. What's your thoughts on the Batman Returns?
So I liked Batman Returns. I like that they introduced the character of Selina Kyle and Catwoman, because she kind of, she's a jewel thief. She's, but for the most part, she becomes an anti-hero. She, like you said, she teeters the line between being a good guy and a bad guy, and
really makes Bruce Wayne think.
Right. And basically she's really there to kind of just get justice for herself against Shrek, right? Shrek, is that his name? Yep. Because she worked for him and he basically killed her, so to speak.
Yeah, cats have 9 lives. You use your first one, right?
And then and then there's that one scene where she gets thrown off the building and she falls into the truck full of kitty litter, and the line is, saved by kitty litter. but
kind of like lays back into it.
But I like how they do that, though. They for a person who may not be too familiar with the source material, the comic books, and where Selina Kyle comes from and what her relationship, so to speak, is to Batman and Bruce Wayne at the same time, and then also having her own story arc, which I'm glad we're not going to talk about it, but they had a Catwoman movie. It was absolutely horrible. And
other than Halle Berry being in it was the win, right? That was about the only win that was in it.
Yes. So, but I liked that, but I did like the character of the Penguin. I think Danny DeVito played a great Penguin, and I know that he took a lot of how he put that out there from Burgess Meredith, who played the Penguin in the 1960s series. And so, the way that he, talked, with a that was Burgess Meredith,
And then he also took a few of those same things away. Jack Nicholson did some certain things with the Joker, kind of played off of some of those same creepy tangents, and it was good. I love Danny DeVito. I think he always has great character work. And it was darker. They were talking about basically murdering all the children, all the sons in Gotham City, and it's just like, okay, that's I don't care who you are. Biblical here, man.
That's a dark. Yeah, seriously. It's like Ramses.
Yes, exactly. But no, the Bible's only got good stuff in it. Don't worry about it. And so, but anyways, as far as those kind of pieces go, it was just really good to see all those things go on. And then obviously there was a little bit of hiatus there for a little bit, it wasn't just one and done. It was, so you had 89, you had 1992, and then 3 years later they all of a sudden lost. In that time frame between 1992 and 1995 was when the Batman Forever movie was. You ended up losing Tim Burton, probably due to creative differences, whatever it might be, that you end up bringing in was it Jerry Bruckheimer that brought in? I can't remember. I'm gonna look it up now. But so you go to the Batman Forever, which ends up having 2 major villains in it. You have Harvey Dent, Two-Face, which they didn't show much of the Harvey Dent. They just showed Two-Face. And then you bring in Jim Carrey as the Riddler and Tommy Lee Jones to play Two-Face. That was epic to see the two of them together. And apparently they didn't get along very well.
So I'm going to tell you this right now. Before we get any further than this, I'm going to throw this out to you and see if you get where I'm going with it. So before this, there is a pseudo sequel to Batman Returns, and I'm going to say it's the really shitty Flash movie that came out like 2 years ago. And the only reason why I say that is because Michael Keaton's Batman has a very significant part in this movie. And this was a movie that was so ill conceived.
Yeah.
It was poorly executed because they rushed it out. And then the lead character, Flash, the guy evidently had some nasty stuff come up about him before the movie even came out. So they rushed it out. So you had really bad CGI. And I feel very, very bad for Michael Keaton. Right. Exactly. 100%. And I bet you any money that if that movie was done correctly, it probably would have been better, because it threw all of the Batman characters out there. It threw all of the Superman characters that could have happened, like the Nick Cage Superman,
they had some fun with it. It was the Deadpool movie without the Deadpool.
Right, exactly. But it was just
and it kills me too, because if that was done well, Tommy, we could have finally gotten a Batman movie I've been dying to watch. My generation, being 10 years younger than you, got to watch Batman Beyond as a great animated series. And that whole premise was about Bruce Wayne teaching the next Batman. And it would have been so cool to see Michael Keaton reprise the role of Bruce Wayne at his true age and be that guy apprenticing the next one. It would have been really fun to see that continuity of what we love from the late 80s, early 90s get stretched out a bit. And it would have been a fun sequel without it really being a sequel at that point. You could still have your fun with doing what you wanted to do with it, because you could have done what we would eventually get here with what Liam Neeson does for young Batman in the one movie. But that's a whole nother topic in a minute.
So hold that thought for later on, because there has been talks of an actual live action Batman Beyond movie. So if I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to be live action, but anyways.
Yes. So let's go back to Joel Schumacher putting nips on Batman.
Okay. All right. I have to say this, and this is the honest to God truth.
Yes.
I absolutely love Batman Forever. And the reason why I love Batman Forever is, one, Jim Carrey's Riddler is fantastic. What's the term? Chef's kiss.
Perfect.
Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones' version of Two-Face, I don't like. I think what I will say is, what I use as the bar for it is the animated series. And the way that the character is portrayed, you have a person who is torn between two sides, good and bad, and is always a coin flip. Tommy Lee Jones was very he took, he was all over the place, and he was like manic himself.
And it was very one-sided too. It was more in the psychopath, not the clear delineation between good and bad that Harvey Dent Two-Face actually is. And that was the thing I always loved about the comic books, and obviously you mentioned my favorite, the animated series, which in my opinion is still one of the best depictions of Batman ever. And to that point, it was very, like you said, it leaned a little bit to the one side, where it was clearly sociopath level, not anything really anchoring him to the real world anymore. It was so far off the deep end. But to that point, did I enjoy that movie with the parts that Tommy Lee was in it? Sure. I love Tommy Lee Jones as an actor anyways. So it didn't ruin it for me anyways. But I could see how some people would have thought about that at the time. But I really enjoyed that dynamic between Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey's Riddler,
Right.
and I thought that they played the pairing pretty well for a movie that had a lot of star power in it. That could have
Mhm.
easily been what we've seen in recent comic book movies and not had that balance between all the characters. This is also a movie that not only had those two in it, but had Val Kilmer as Batman,
Mhm.
had the appearance of Robin for the first time with I forget his name, but I'll figure it here in a sec. Who was in like every '90s movie off the bat after this, and then you
Is
had
it Jerry
Nicole,
Connell? Or
yeah,
Connell?
Connell. McDonald,
Yep.
I think. So, but anyways, he was in the movie, and then you have Nicole Kidman's in the damn movie as
Mhm.
the psychiatrist love interest for Bruce Wayne, and it was insane how much star power was in this movie for a third Batman movie, and everybody wanted to be in it. And you hear the casting, like you mentioned, who's going to be the villain, who's going to play the villain, da da da
Yep.
da. It was crazy, but you saw the full the full gambit of what Jim Carrey can be in this movie as the Riddler,
Mhm.
pairing off against somebody very leaning uber good with the Val Kilmer depiction of Batman. It wasn't the
Right.
dark and broody part of it about it. Was definitely more brought into the light from the hero aspect a little bit more. So, and then obviously him trying to do the right thing for, obviously, Robin coming up, Dick Grayson. That was
Yes.
also depicted in this movie. So you have to show that he is that good of a guy. The one thing I want to mention in this whole thing is you had two movies that had one gentleman playing Alfred, and then you still had that continuity of that guy playing Alfred through all these first five movies, which was spot on. He was great as Alfred. I'm blanking on his name, but tip of the hat. So I'll find it here in a minute. But
So yeah, but I'm trying to see who played the Riddler in the
Michael Goff
series.
was Alfred.
Okay. Was it Frank Gorshin or John Aston?
Yeah.
Frank Gorshin. Frank
Yeah.
Gorshin is the one I'm thinking of because Jim Carrey's character is very similar to the way that he was played, and again, very similar to the way the Riddler was portrayed in the '60s. Kind of manic and all over, but still very intelligent. Which
No.
that's basically what it was. Is that he's intelligent. Now we're going to
He's not
get
gonna kick
another
Batman's ass. He's gonna
as
play him.
we right, but as we move on, we actually are going to get another uh, version of the Riddler, which is going to make things a little bit darker and more visceral.
Yep.
And so
So in the interest of time, why don't we start moving to the quick here? Obviously, we got one other one here that we're going to barely touch on because it was literally the downfall of Batman,
Mhm.
and that
Oh yeah.
is Batman and Robin. This is where I was saying you did well with Batman Forever with balancing the talent. Batman and Robin had a shitty script. It had too many villains in it. And the star power was still there when you have George Clooney, McDonald coming back. You all of
Mhm.
a sudden bring in Batgirl with Alicia Silverstone, and then you have Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, which honestly, at the time, who else would you have casted to be Mr.
Right.
Freeze? That was a perfect fit. But then having Uma Thurman thrown into that whole thing with this is
Poison
Poison
Ivy.
Ivy, and then
Yeah.
Bane was just
Bane. Mhm.
that's the whole
But
movie.
that's but again,
It was just too much.
You get a version of Bane who's straight from the animated series, looks just like
Yeah.
the animated series version. And I'm not upset about the Uma Thurman Poison Ivy character because I think she did it right. I think
I
she
think she did
played
too.
a very
You're squeezing too much into one can.
right. She played a very seductive, temptress kind of person who can, take over your mind with pheromones and
Yep.
but again, I use the animated series as my bar. Arnold Schwarzenegger's version of Mr. Freeze, absolutely horrible. absolutely horrible. I want to
I didn't
see
say he performed it well. I said it was a right casting.
I want to see a cold, dead stare, and the only emotion from this man is when he's trying to find a cure for his dying wife.
Yeah.
That's the
Looking
only
back
thing I
at
want to
somebody
see.
looking back, seeing somebody that's become an actor over the recent years, honestly, I'm just gonna make this pun intended with this one scene. This movie was littered with fucking puns. Was why didn't you just cast Stone Cold Steve Austin? We would have been better off.
Right, right. But
You already got a
again,
guy that can do the thing you were talking about and go,
right.
full dead inside and shark looking. So
But
go
but
ahead.
that's but that's exactly it. Is again, I use the animated series as my bar. And had they played that character the way that he was meant to be played, and not some, goofball whose
Pun.
intentions were still correct to the source material, but at the same
Yes.
time making stupid puns. And now again, you can make those
No.
same stupid puns when you but with deadpan cold in your yes, be like, okay, freeze. Instead of like, oh.
All right, everybody, chill.
But again,
Oh,
now they're taking, but when you get to Batman and Robin, they take that to that camp, and it's like they go backwards and they want to go back to 1960s with it.
yeah,
And
and it was too
but
much.
again, now again, we're getting a Bat movie, and we want to see a couple of things. We want to see what the new costume looks like. We want to see what the new vehicle looks like, the new Batmobile,
It's
because
wild.
at that point, we got brand new everything to
New
include bat
toys.
nipples.
Yep. Thank you,
and
Schumacher.
you got bat ass, because you had to do an homage of
Yeah,
all
those
three characters
Silverstone.
showing their asses.
Oh God, vulcanized rubber butts.
So now
So
going forward,
now
so
we're gonna go
we drop the camp.
complete U-turn. Complete U-turn. So, and I think I have to talk about the next group of movies here, Tommy, as a trilogy, because Christopher Nolan actually
They are.
conceived the main pieces of this, what turned into the Batman trilogy. He conceived them as 3 movies. Did he have them all completely figured out? Fuck no. But he had them canned up in his mind that these are what I want to do for all 3 movies. The first one, obviously, Batman Begins. So you see Christian Bale learning how to be Batman. He's obviously very upset about everything that happened with his family. He's struggling. Michael Caine can't help him, even though he's one of the better Alfreds that we've seen, because he was a true partner to Batman in that one. You could see that. Alfred Pennyworth in the previous ones, he was a partner, but it still looked like that servant piece to it, where it was a true mentor and partner with Michael Caine's Alfred Pennyworth. So
Almost
you
a
get this.
almost a father-like character going into the Nolan verse, because
Yes.
Alfred like takes on the mantle of basically still kind of guiding this young man into manhood, knowing that he is tortured, and trying to right the wrong of
Yes.
losing his mother and father in such a tragic way.
Correct. And Batman Begins was a amazing start to revitalizing a character in the right way, from the horrible puns and everything, because even Clooney was throwing puns in that movie. It was just
Yes.
lazy writing. So you all of a sudden had this great actor playing Batman. You have Michael Caine, and then you bring in Liam Neeson to be his, mentor, teach him how to, become Batman. Shows the shadow of the League of Shadows. So it shows you all these things and gets you this tip behind the curtain that you didn't always see in the movies. A lot of the Batman animated series touched on some of these things, but it didn't show it. So because they just jump right into yeah, here's Batman, right? So you didn't see this backstory before. And to see that come and play through on the silver screen, and then obviously watching what turned into a tragedy of watching the League of Shadows is, it gets burned down. He thinks he saves his mentor and all these wonderful things, and then gets back to Gotham and starts going at it. And you see the Scarecrow being propped up as the villain. But was that the real villain, Tommy? And that was where the beauty of the writing of this movie was.
Right.
So
I do like the Nolan verse, but again, we get that what is the Bat costume going to look like, because it's a completely different. We're getting a retelling, right?
Yep.
And then we don't get a true Batmobile like we've had in the past. We get the Tumbler, which is freaking badass in itself.
I gotta give me one of those.
Honestly, and the thing is though, is that you still get the cool kind of gadgets where the tumbler gets blown up, but then it like falls apart, and then now it's a freaking motorcycle that can go sideways.
Yeah, exactly. But so you ended up, like I said, Liam Neeson ends up being the mentor turned villain in this movie, and then you get him as Ra's al Ghul, which was not mentioned in any of the other movies, when it was always such a cool character in all the comics and in the animated series stuff. So it was really cool to see that one, and not knowing it was coming, blew my mind when I saw it. I was like, oh my god, he's Ra's al Ghul. I thought they killed him already.
Yes.
It was really cool to see that. And then you get some up and coming actor pieces from Cillian Murphy and Katie Holmes in that movie, along with having Liam Neeson, Michael Caine, and Gary Oldman as James Gordon. That was just awesome as a nice piece to put on top of that too. So you got to see that dynamic form, which you didn't see in a lot of those other movies either.
No, the cast was great. The story was great. We're actually starting to get a serious Batman movie. So then it's like, okay, now we're everything else that happened before, even though people will still tell you that Michael Keaton was their favorite Batman. Even my wife Karen says her favorite Batman is Michael Keaton, but you're seeing a different Batman story being told. You're seeing something that's real, true, and gritty, and something. And I know I mentioned this when we talked about phase 1 of the MCU, is believability in the character, that this is a character that actually has the means of making these things happen and probably could exist in real life, and I think that's what we're getting.
You got to the last person I almost forgot here. You got the guy that literally helps build Batman, and Morgan Freeman's Lucius Fox character.
Yes.
And so obviously he conquers evil in the first movie, and you move on to the Dark Knight, who we got to see two phenomenal actors play with the toys here that are two great villains in the Joker and Harvey Dent. And actually Harvey Dent, which was, in my opinion, one of the cooler parts of the Dark Knight, because you got to see the Joker flip everything around for Harvey Dent. So like I mentioned, I love the Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson Batman, and I love that era. But dear God, that Dark Knight movie, that hit hard when it came out, and it wasn't just because we lost. Oh crap! Now I'm blanking on his mind. I'm losing names tonight. But
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. I know he's not. God rest his soul, but he got into that character, and it might have been one of the things that tipped him over the edge. But Jack Nicholson warned him, be careful, if you're a method actor, getting into that psyche of what that character can do. And that we didn't see a lot of that kind of villainy in some comic book movies up to that point, because that was definitely taking it up a notch.
So there's a I think it's a documentary they just came out or is about to come out. I think it might be on Netflix. I'm not sure, but Heath Ledger's dad is doing this, and he's actually showing the diary that Heath wrote while he was preparing for this role, and all of the things that he, clippings and stuff like that, just to get himself prepared. And it's just like, okay, now this is you could tell
It was
he
a
was
little
a
dark.
method actor. Yeah, he went into it with that. And as far as the depictions of two villains, the way that I hold them to be, Harvey Dent and Heath Ledger's Joker in this movie are the bar at this point. I mean, not taking anything away from Jack Nicholson, but Heath Ledger's Joker is, to me, the quintessential Joker. He is
I'm going to
the
tell you where it
psychopath
sold
that
me.
he's meant to be. Well, go
I'm going to
ahead.
tell you where it sold me. So he walks into the room in the full purple,
Mhm.
tux and everything like that. And he goes, they're like, why shouldn't I kill you right now? And he goes, how about a magic trick? And he puts the pencil down on the table and he goes, I'm going to make this pencil disappear. And then next thing you know, the thing's in the guy's head and he goes, and it's gone. That was the part that sold me. I'm like, this is taking that
Yep.
character up to that next piece because it was
Mhm.
taking that part that I loved about the Jack Nicholson piece with, like I mentioned, with the buzzer. It was campy, but it was still Jack Nicholson. This
Right,
was a
right.
whole new thing that was like, oh my God, that's what we're getting in this movie. It was just flip of the switch level, full
Yes.
on insanity. So
But
crazy.
truly a character
And
actor,
then Aaron
truly
Eckhart.
a method actor playing the part of it. If you go by the source material and you go by some of the really darker stories of the Joker, um, you got that through Heath Ledger, and
Yeah.
it's sad that we won't ever get to see anything else like that from Heath, because obviously he is
Yeah.
no longer with us. But
Correct.
he left a like I said, he is the benchmark when it comes to that character and that character alone.
Yeah, which
So
is saying a lot when you have
mhm.
literally that crazy that we were talking about with Jack Nicholson. And then here's the
Yes.
crazier part in that movie specifically, the performance that Aaron Eckhart did as Harvey Dent. If that
Hmm.
he was the only villain in that movie, Tommy, eventually in that whole thing, I think we'd be talking about him in this same fashion that we
Oh
talk
yeah.
about Heath Ledger because his portray of Harvey Dent turning and going insane at the end of that movie, we all thought it might happen. You were well, okay. Why are we only seeing Harvey Dent? But there was nothing in that movie's trailer or anything that actually teased you to the fact. Thank God, to the point that he was eventually going to become Harvey Dent, Two Face by the end of that
Right.
movie. I was assuming going into that movie that this one was going to be the one that you get teased a little bit with it, with the Joker dangling in the line, and then the third movie was going to be watching Two Face take over. So
Right.
I wouldn't have been shocked, and it would have worked perfectly fine like that too.
And
But we
again,
got all that in one movie,
though,
and it
that
fit perfectly.
the portrayal of Harvey Dent, Two Faced, wasn't the campy, goofy,
Yeah,
dance of joy kind of, um, Tommy Lee Jones version. You got an actual, guy who is
sociopath.
teetering on the line of a sociopath and somebody who is bound by the law.
Yeah,
And I think that and
flip the coin.
again, flip the coin and come what may. So I just,
Yeah,
again, you're not getting a campy movie anymore. You're getting something
correct.
that's dark and gritty, and people who are truly going through a crisis, if you will.
Yeah,
There's
and
very
then
complex characters.
Heath Ledger's Joker just sitting there going, introduce a little anarchy into the fun, flip the damn coin.
Mhm. Yep,
That was
yep.
the cherry on top.
The chef's kiss.
So exactly. I don't want to go too far into that movie anymore, but we do have to button up that part of the conversation with
Yeah.
The Dark Knight Rises, and everybody was very odded out by this movie when it was coming up because they're like, Bane. This is the same
Yeah.
guy we saw to go,
Mhm.
and that's it in the other movie. You're gonna make him the main villain. Everybody was very, very surprised by that going into this movie. And honestly, Tommy, I thought it ended up being a really good movie. because it showed the struggle of what it was like to even be Batman, especially with a villain that was stronger and smarter than you all of a sudden, and bringing back quote unquote Bruce Wayne's demons to the light again. The League of Shadows is actually Bane. So it was really cool to see. And then you obviously had the Ra's al Ghul's daughter by the end of the movie with Bane, and it just was a wildness.
So I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I did not like it. I did not like this iteration
I didn't say
of
perfectly.
I didn't like this iteration of Catwoman. I did not, and I didn't like this. I didn't like this. Who is it? What's the what's the actor's name that played Bane? It was not Tom Holland. It's
James Hardy.
No.
Why am I not
Tom Hardy? Is it Tom Hardy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy. Yep.
So I don't want to talk to you about I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Stupid Batman.
I'm gonna break your back. No, I didn't. I did not like this version of Bane. I did not like the fact that he was the main baddie. There is a rogues gallery of villains that could have been the same type of character that is smarter, that is stronger, and done better than I'm gonna talk you through this mask, and I'm sorry.
Why wouldn't that be Mr. Freeze? I think that what they wanted to do was just like they didn't want to copy characters from the other movies, but so many villains in the Batman universe,
Yes.
I just don't understand why you couldn't have found something else. Fucking Killer Croc would have been a better villain than.
Well, I mean, but there are so many awesome villains that are really, I mean, they are nightmare fuel, and I'm not even talking Scarecrow. I'm talking like Professor Pig. If you've never seen Professor Pig, nightmare fuel.
Yes. I would have honestly, what I thought would have been really cool, especially after seeing that one, is like, oh man, this would have been a really cool one to do the Court of Owls and have them do the whole, there's really like an Illuminati thing going on, and whoever the figurehead had to be, or figureheads, and just keep the whole thing spinning for Batman as he goes down the hole, would have been really cool. Which I'm trying to remember what show they did that in. I think it was Gotham, the one that they did with young
Bruce
Gordon. Yep, young Gordon, and then very, very young Bruce and Catwoman. Yep. So, but anyway, I agree with you that I liked it, but I didn't hate it. It was kind of weird for me, it was more Batman, so that was what I was happy about.
Right, but could have done it could. I think they could have gotten a better, and I'm hoping that as we start seeing more Batman stuff come, I hope to see some of these, not so well known villains, but some that, like I said, they're freaking nightmare fuel. Like Zaz. Zaz is nightmare fuel.
Zaz would have been fun, and he's always a B character at best, which is hilarious because he's actually a really good character.
But then you got the goofy. You got the goofy ones though. You got like, was it Egghead, and then you got
Ketchup and Mustard Man or something like that was one of them, I think.
Calendar Man.
Yeah, that was a So,
but there are some that are out there. But so we God, we're already at the hour. So we do have to touch base on two new Batman so Ben Affleck. Now Ben Affleck, do I think he was a bad Batman? No, I don't think he was a bad Batman. I think that he was a Batman at the wrong time. He was in bad movie and at the wrong time. I think he really wanted to make a really good movie, and I think that he probably still could have. However, it was the wrong time. We didn't need it yet.
The problem with that whole era of Batman movies was the trying to compete with Marvel and trying to steal the Marvel formula. So you get the Batman versus Superman, you get the Justice League, and for what I thought Ben Affleck did pretty good in, and those were what it was. But those movies were just unfortunately the same thing and hard to watch. And I'm looking very forward to where they take the new stuff. I really am, because I honestly couldn't wait for those movies to be over with, especially Batman versus Superman. I was like, I just watched this. This is the Captain America Civil War. What am I doing here? This is even more drawn out in courts, literally.
So the thing is that if DC wants to truly have a real life version, which I think they can, they're going to have to basically scrap everything and start fresh, and keep the characters, keep the actors that are going to portray these parts, and keep them going. But if they're going to do it, they have to do it together.
They started doing that, and they still have an opportunity to take this essence of Batman and roll it into what Zack Snyder is now, not Zack Snyder. James Gunn is currently doing with the new DC universe. Robert Pattinson, who, funny enough, of Twilight fame, was in the most recent one in 2022 called The Batman. And Tommy, outside of, I felt this movie was a little weird with its pace. It was a very different Batman movie. To me, it was a little slow, but the detective fun that was actually in it. After I watched it the second time, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I got it now. Maybe I watched it in the wrong mood, something of that nature. But it was one of those things that when I rewatched it, I got a different essence out of it, and I did really appreciate it. And the kid that played the the Riddler, weird casting choice, because I've only seen that guy ever in comedies. To see him do a flip like that, to be a freaking socio monster nutcase as the Riddler, it was a really weird version of the Riddler, but I was scared of it. It was like, I don't want that guy in my city.
Right. The one thing that I will say about the Robert Pattinson Batman is the grittiness of it. He's not the polished Batman that we've gotten even in the Nolan verse. He is still, basically getting his legs. He's still trying to figure everything out. He's not by any means the super fighter that, that again, from previous freaking iterations, he's not, he's still trying to figure out how his gadgets work and stuff, which I think is actually pretty good. Even the Batmobile in this, it seems like it was just put together, because he's still figuring it out. Right. So again, I mean, if he continues on as Batman in upcoming movies, we may actually see the evolution of a, still figuring out, not polished all the way up to, seasoned veteran, knows what's going on, knows how to do things better. I hope we get to see that.
Supposedly earmarked for 2027, the Batman Part 2.
Now here's one thing though that's helping this version of Batman is the Penguin series that was on Max, because the Penguin series,
Colin Farrell is nuts, is it?
People are loving that series, and that's going to keep the interest in this version of Batman to go into this next movie. And again, this version of Penguin is a believable character. He doesn't have the web hands and stuff like that, but he's a believable character, as and that's just his nickname and stuff, and
correct. It's his crime name at the end of the day, right?
Right. So again, that's where they have to make this happen, is make the characters believable, make it, there are psychopaths out there.
Write an actual story with no puns.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But
on the pun joke, go ahead, finish your thought.
I just wanted to ask you one thing before, because I know we're going over. We always go over. But when it comes to the Joker, all right, we have a bunch of different versions of the Joker, and so Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, first Joker he came out with, fantastic character development. You know, you kind of get it. I know you probably didn't like it, but I'm going to throw something out there.
I didn't like it at all.
I'm going to throw this out to the people who watched the second movie that was a musical, and say, don't take it for face value. Think of it this way, because I actually watched it and I didn't like it, but then once I thought about it, I was like, maybe if you looked at it from the sense of it's not a musical, all this stuff, all these songs and everything are in his head, so you're actually in his psyche, and all of this is just
as he's doing all this shit,
right? All this stuff is happening, but all of these songs and stuff is all in the mind of an insane man who's falling apart and becoming just horrible, you know. So just throwing that out there to the people who
might it out there. I didn't think of it that way. But to that point, I didn't like either of those Joker movies. Those two Joker movies killed me. The first one, I felt like I was sitting there going, it's going to pick up at some point, right? It's going to pick up at some point, right? And then finally it does, and then it ended. And I'm like, it killed me. I didn't like
it. Already 3
and
hours.
Then watching the second one was, exactly. I was waiting a long time, Tommy. That's all I'm gonna say. I was waiting a long fucking time.
It's like waiting 3 hours in a line for an amusement park ride you know is gonna suck.
Yes, that's kind of how it is. And I'll give you the comparison of why I can't stand watching the movie or the show The Office. Because you and I worked in an office like that. It's too much of a real thing.
Yes.
So it's like, feeling my own anxiety and my stress coming into
every character. We've had every character.
Yep. So I want to end on the joke like we always do. Exactly. Probably one of those two. So I want to end on a joke like we always do. And I want to talk about some of the animated movies that actually were on the silver screen. So I want to talk really simple, real quick. We actually got the luxury of seeing a animated series Batman movie, which was bloody, epic, and had Mark Hamill as the Joker in The Mask of the Phantasm.
One of the best Jokers.
And
one of the best Jokers.
100%. And for anybody that hasn't been able to play the video games, even that was one of my favorite reasons of playing the Arkham Asylum games. Is the Joker was portrayed and voiced by Mark Hamill in those games. Still, it was the animated series voices. So you got Carrie and everybody. So and it was really cool to see that. I would highly recommend going on YouTube and watching those in just the plot form, because there are people that do that and take the video game and kind of cut it to look like a movie, and you can watch it even if you're not playing the video game. It's a big win. I really would highly recommend it, because all three of those games are gold from that aspect. And but that movie, I remember watching that in the movie theater too, Tommy. I was like, oh man, this is freaking violent. You know, it was not that the animated series wasn't, but you didn't see Bruce Wayne bleeding out while he was fighting the Joker half the time. So, but the other one I wanted to talk about, because this is another one that technically is a Batman movie that's poking fun at it just as much, but I was a big fan of Lego Batman. Will Arnett as Batman. Did you get the pleasure of seeing that one, Tommy?
Yes. And the thing about it is, it's good. It's campy and it's good. But it's a Lego movie.
And I think, and that was the beautiful thing of it. The thing that being a Batman fan, seeing all the stupid jokes that they crammed into that movie throughout the whole thing. Like he's just walking around the Batcave and he's all alone and kind of like rocking out metal, because he's Batman. He's got to be dark and broody and listen to metal. And you're seeing like the shark repellent in the background hanging out there. Then you're seeing the bat sub, the bat plane, the bat whatever. It was funny to see all those goofing and things and them having fun with a license that they could have fun with that. And then Will Arnett voicing that was just a fun time anyways, because he's such a good voice actor.
So there are two that aren't on the silver screen, but you could see them, I believe, on Netflix or something. Two iterations of the Joker that are frightening. And that's The Killing Joke if you see that, it's just
it took some liberties from the comic book.
Yes,
but it was still good.
and then Batman: Death in the Family is another great one. So they're animated. So if you haven't seen those, watch them. But just remember that those two animated movies are very adult.
Yes,
there may
and they're
not
also
be any
based off of
nudity in
actual
it.
comic books.
Yes.
They're based off of actual comic books by the same name.
Yep.
Yes.
So yeah, look up Batman: The Killing Joke and Batman: Death in the Family. I watched those myself, and I was like, man, this is like Heath Ledger style Joker, and then it cranks it up to 11. It's just how depraved these two animated. So we've gone over like we always do. So I'm sorry.
But that's all I've got.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
I'm glad we only talked about movies.
Yes. So on that note, Tommy, it is the hour. Is there anything else you'd like to add on Batman before we go off for the night?
No, I think I'm just looking forward to seeing if we get another good, gritty story that we can with Batman with Robert Pattinson. And
I really hope we do, because I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Could it get better? Yes, but to the point that we talked out, that was the step one, right? And I meant to mention this when we were talking about that one. Seeing Lenny Kravitz's daughter turn into an amazing actress in that movie as Selena Kyle.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think she's got a bright career in front of her. Zoe Kravitz.
Yep.
So but on that note, Tommy, I got nothing else to add on Batman, but I actually have something fun to say for anybody that happens to be listening. So I'm actually starting, not technically my third podcast. I'm double dipping on my Blue Jay fandom. Apparently, in the next week, we are launching with me and another, firm. It's called Fan Arc. I'm going to be the host of Jay's Latest, so that's going to be the fun part.
Ooh.
So you'll be able to catch that on YouTube in the next week.
And this is a completely affiliated with the Blue Jays organization.
No, but with this organization that does all sort there, but to that point I might be making money from it for the first time. So it'll be the first time I really make legit money from a podcast. So there you go, win.
And yeah, for you, I mean,
and I'm gonna steal all their ideas for us.
You're gonna leave me in the dust.
Nope, not doing that. I like this. I get the nerd out. Different nerdy.
But should be on the lookout, because the T&C Random Fandom is going to eventually become an LLC, and we might have a bunch of different other shows coming down the pipe. If I'm not correct, if I'm correct in that assumption there, Mr. Gregory.
That is the dream, Tommy. How you and I get there, that is the dream. We'll see what happens. But on that note, everybody, thank you very much for supporting us and having a great night here with us talking Batman and having fun. We'll be back next week with a wonderful new topic, hopefully a few guests. We are currently trying to get some people to play around with dates and stuff for us, so we don't know who's going to be on next week and what topic it is going to be. So make sure you hit us up on whatever social media you can, because maybe you can be one of those guests that brings that topic to hang out with us. Just remember, knowing's half the battle. G.I. Joe guy here. So anyway, make sure you join us live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And if you don't, make sure you get us wherever you happen to be listening to your podcast pleasures from, or on YouTube. So we hope you have a great night. Cheers, everybody, and have a great week.
Cheers.